Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Black Man Spotlight. I'm here with Tyrique Glasgow, and he is the founder of the Young Chances organization in Philadelphia. I'm so excited and so nervous at the same time because Tyrique has done some incredible things in the community, and I want to make sure that I honor him and his story and everything that you've been through and the things that you are carrying young people through. And I'm so proud of you. Tyrique has an incredible organization that helps young girls and boys who are living in South Philly, shout out to Philly, and who are needing that chance, that connection, that big brother. Tyrique and his community really help young kids see a better way. I've seen you take them to the zoo. I've seen you do after school programs. I've seen you do giveaways, and I've seen you share your energy and your time and your space with them, even when there's little to no resources to do so. And there's not a lot of young adults, I say that you're a young adult, doing that type of work in our community and pouring into the kids like that. And so I just wanted to thank you. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. Well, first, I want to give you your flowers too because I'm home. It's always love to come back to the city, but to have a conversation with our people, to have a honest conversation. And I did some homework on you too. Like you give a plate that our community needs. A lot of things in our community is political and things like that. But when you talk about mental and emotional health, this is a conversation that's needed. And I'll just say when I got the email and I seen that it's a podcast and, men, the media talking points, but to see that it's run by a young Black woman who understands, the bigger picture just took me back to, my grandma and the foundation of really why, I do this work. Without a strong Black woman in my family, I wouldn't be who I am today. So I'm gracious to be here and, to have this conversation and try to build on a better tomorrow.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. I feel like sometimes the things that I do aren't as impactful as grassroots work because like you're really on the ground, like face to face with people. And that's why I really respect what you do and wanted to connect with you in real life and give you your flowers. And also pay respects to your grandmother. I know that she had a really big impact on you and your story. Can you tell me a little bit about her and her impact on your life?
Yeah, I try to be consistent because she was, she didn't play both sides. We understood family, but we had to have discipline. Grandma was a real one. She made sure that everyone in the house ate, but we didn't know how she got it. She was the first hustler. When I think about, what I do now, I'm just a little guy trying to mimic what she did, from free daycares to the food to having a little faith and just being able to talk to not just you, but everyone. It wasn't just me, it was my cousins, my uncles, my aunts, and she found the way to make it happen. And that's why I really believe that if you're going to do something, if you're not doing it with a pure heart, it's not going to last. And that's one of the things that, she instilled in me, and I didn't get it at the time because I'm thinking, oh, grandma keep making us go to church, grandma making us do these things. But, during my journey, I remember, Proverbs 3, verse 5 through 6. And she used to always make us do this during Sunday school or during out the week. But it was trusting the Lord with all your heart and lean out on your own understanding and all your ways acknowledge him and he would direct your path. So every time that I think about her, I think about what she did, what path she wanted me on during the time that she was here. And, sometimes we don't always follow it right then and there. But I started to see, when I was in jail and, trying to live my own life, that wasn't the way that I was supposed to do. So,
Mm.
grandmom was consistent even when I was not listening. She showed that love. And that's what I try to do with our community, be consistent regardless of if crime is going up or down, if the kid want to listen today or tomorrow, but you still have to be there because you never know what that person is going through.
I know a little bit about your story about, kind of veered off the path that your grandma wanted you to go on. Why was that for you? Like as a young Black boy, you might have thought you needed more money, or what was it that kind of sparked that journey?
My pride,
Mm.
I didn't want to feel as though I was a burden. A lot of times in our community, to be a man, you have to provide, and there's no age limit on it. I see young men and women in the community that 8, 9, 10 years old, and they're walking their little brother or cousins to the store, and they have this macho about them, like, bro, you ain't been here before. But you have to think about where they coming from. That's just a barrier for them to protect themselves because they know or might have heard or seen that this is how you survive. So it's not really what you want to do, it's the environment that really makes you who they want you to be at that time.
Hmm. And so the environment that you grew up in, could you tell me more about it? Because I grew up, I feel like I grew up in a little bit of a bubble personally. I gotta be honest. So like I'm really unpacking this from the ground level of trying to really get to know you and introduce you to an audience because I think that is absolutely incredible that you were able to, in a place where, you might have not felt like there was enough for the people that you love, try to make more and create enough in the ways that you knew how. But then obviously that caught up to you. And then as soon as you got out of prison, it was literally a year after that, you started Young Chances, So you've always been someone who tried to support not just yourself, but other people. So my question to you is like, what was that environment like mentally when before, you went to jail and you were experiencing a transformation of being forced to, stop what you were doing?
One of the things that I think that is real important is we have the good moments,
Mm,
but in that same household was the sexual abuse, was the mental abuse. There was financial troubles, but grandma, she never put it out there. So when I was in jail, I was just really thinking about like how this continues to happen. And my grandma didn't talk about mental health. Grandma didn't talk about how she had to play at a church all week long so we could have a Sunday meal. My grandma was also evangelist, but she was a pianist, so she had to play. Like even though like we understood what praise and worship service, if grandma didn't play the piano, we didn't eat because one uncle was getting high, the other uncle wasn't there, a couple cousins was in the streets, the other aunts was doing them, but every Sunday where the meetup was at, church, where we go back to 110. So when I looked at my organization, I just really thought about my grandma. People come around all the times and they're not going to talk about the troubles, but they're there. Still try to provide that. Still try to provide that meal, that safe place, because you don't want someone to become 20, 30 years old and a 15-second reaction can determine if they're going to jail, if they're doing those things because of the trauma that has been in their life for 10, 20 years. Because yes, they wanted to provide, but they couldn't fill out an application. They couldn't get their ID. They couldn't provide for the people who really looked out for them their whole life, but now they feel as though that they're worthless, but that's not it. Consistency is key. If you are there for someone, sometimes it's not the financial things that matter.
mm, that's huge because on here I'm talking about mental health. And so I'm hearing you communicate is, sometimes mental health is the root of the start of a lot of downfall within our community and it's generational.
Yes.
Right? And then we have our vices, and then it really impacts the kids. Like, and then what I love about what you're doing is that you are grabbing our people and from that age that you wish someone grabbed you.
When you look in our community, where's the fresh fruits? Where's the vegetables? Where are the apples and oranges that a kid can probably get to probably pass a test or to have a conversation with a teacher? Or it's like, all right, my stomach is not hitting my spinal cord, so I don't have to act like I have a problem. I can tell you I'm hungry. But who's going to tell someone they're hungry when everyone in the community talks about money, wants likes on social media? You can't be broke. You can't show your EBT card when you're going in the store. So to tell someone you're hungry will expose that your family don't have. Oh, they sent you out here without it. Why you ain't got nothing to eat? And that may start if you don't know how to communicate. How do I communicate? Through violence. And that's not what the blatant ingredients of success is. So you try to break down those individual barriers like, all right, every Tuesday and Thursdays, everyone has meals here from 4 to 6. 6 to 8, we're going to do community service because the police department and national stats already show that between 4 and 8, that's the most high crime time in the area. But what causes those things? Hunger, financial issues. So let's work on those things. Provide a meal. Give someone $30 so they can get their ID. Help someone get some Pampers so they won't go in the store and steal something you see in an abundance of cops on the corner. And now what's the threat is not just the financial or providing a plate. Now it's an interaction with police that we don't need.
Are people shocked when they're seeing you run this organization and doing this work?
I think it's not the shock. It's like, all right, it's real because a lot of people talk it, a lot of people do those things. And I don't want to be a poverty pimp. There's people who pimp our issues in poverty from mental health, from truancy, from domestic and emotional violence that it's not something that you should talk about. It's something that you should provide action for. So if people in our community can't read and write, I'm not going to complain stuff on the politics. Let me go get a book nook, put a library here. Let me go get some internet service. Let me work with the people who have those resources to get it done. The same way that you're in a mix or you're in the streets and people have different connects. If you're a real hustler, there's never a drought. So if you're in your community, there shouldn't be poverty. You should be able to network with the same leaders on a different page to make sure that those resources come down. That's why it's important for me to work with University of Penn, the police department, the school district, all of these unauthorized partnerships is because who has the bag? The police department is the number one funding agency in the city of Philadelphia.
Wow.
Why would I not work with the same people who the first interaction is, who are you? We can answer that. He has an identification card. So you don't have to stop and frisk. We're not going to march. We're not going to do those things because if you are trained the right way and our people have the right resources, we can communicate. We can do those things where it's not, oh, let's do a march because it was a shooting and all those things, but why those things happen. And we try to just prevent them.
Mm. Well, what do you think is the biggest problem that um, Black boys are facing right now? And then how is that leading into adulthood? Because this is Affirmations for Black Men. And I know a lot of Black boys and Black teenagers and Black adults watch us. And so I know that they see themselves through this conversation. And like, what do you think that they're facing right now?
I think they need to be told that they can win. It's not always about losing. Um, and you don't have to go through something to be somebody. I know that, I'm here because of my past, but it's really about providing that future. We have to get out of the him, the trying to mimic what we see on TV, because at the end of the day, we go home to our wives, to our mothers, our grandmothers, our daughters, our sons, and we have to provide for them. You're not providing that with guns and drugs and not having pride. No, what do you need to do to be a better you? And
Mm.
when I think about me, I don't talk about just me. I talk about the mental and emotional health of myself. What am I doing to better myself? And it's hard to be selfish. It's hard to say, you know what? I want to go work. I'm going to go to therapy because there are some things that I need to get off my chest.
Mm.
You know what? I'm going to apologize to the women in my life where I knew there wasn't going to be a relationship and I took advantage. I'm going to talk to the teachers, to the people, just to have communication. And it's cool. It'll give you some closure on some of the things that you know that you wanted. When I came home from jail, I was 29. And at that time, my mom never told me she loved me. And people used to always, say, well, Reed, like, it's cool. One day I was in uh, one of our programs that you have to complete to come home from jail. And it was like a love list. And, I had my daughter on there and I was telling the story of how I watched my daughter grow up on pictures in jail. And for the first 5 years, I'm like, that's not cool, but I had to check myself because I'm like, you talking about your mom, but what are you doing? You're doing the same trauma affliction. Like, who's walking your daughter to school? Who's telling your daughter that she's loved, that she's a queen? Because those are the things that I missed.
I want to ask you, what is it? Because you mentioned doing things for myself. What are you doing for yourself to maintain your own mental health? Because I often see people who are in community the way that you are taking care of everybody else. How do you take care of you? And what are some of the prayers that you do say for yourself if you feel comfortable sharing?
Um, but one of the greens is just being honest. I always talk about my yesterday, so I don't revert back to it. I talk about my mental health challenges. I talk about not going to therapy. I talk about being a better father, a son, to the people that surround me because that makes my today and tomorrow better.
Mm-hmm.
Therapy and sitting down and having conversations, but the actions is what's most important to me. A lot of people say it's easier for people in our community to get a gun than an ID. I like to change that. Like
Mm-hmm.
that should not be normal where every kid when you walk into an assembly and they're like, "How many here know you've been shot?" and they raise it. That's traumatizing. How about you say how many of you been on an airplane? And if you haven't, we're going to send you. We'll get you on one. How many of you been outside of the area where we know that by 2 by 4 block radius, this where you'll probably live 80% of your life? Get them outside of those things. So when they're looking at palm trees, they're not like, "Oh, that was on." No, that's an hour from you. You can go to a beach. You could put sand in your feet. Like this is not something where you're like, oh well, I had no. This is life. It's not a dream for you to be successful. Like you can live this every day.
Mm-hmm. I met a kid who's was working at a store. He had a job, but he was communicating to me. He hasn't been outside of his 20-block radius. He's like, everything I need is right here. He's like, what do you mean? I don't need to go over there.
And
So I got it on my phone.
and that's how they get
I'm
us.
like, what?
Like a lot, we strive in our summer camp program to get all of our community, even some of the parents, outside of the city. We
Wow.
done toured DC. We went to Disney, Niagara Falls, Puerto Rico the next year.
What?
So,
That's so cool.
like, and those are the things that where it's like, no one should be able to judge a kid by their looks. Majority of the people, when they come into our neighborhoods and community, from researchers, doctors, politicians, they assume the worst. That makes the best case for them. Well, I know this kid can't read. I know they're probably not going to graduate. I know they've been affected by gun violence. How about this kid knows how to make 3 different dishes from 3 different countries? How about this
Mm.
kid can speak Spanish? Because when we went to Puerto Rico, that was part of their agenda, that they had to converse with the locals there. How about, yes, these kids did not just see Mickey Mouse on TV, they went and took pictures with them. Like they actually traveled. Do you have your passport? Because the 38 kids in our camp does. Because those are the things where it's like, don't point the finger at our community. Look in the mirror and figure out how you can change their image in their future.
Mm. Period. And if you could say anything to your kids in that camera right there about their future and all of the hopes and dreams that they have for themselves, what would you say?
We love you, and we're going to always be here for you. Just let us know your dreams, and we're going to make it happen. We have to raise up our kids where they're not the outsiders. If you don't survive, if you don't succeed, if you don't become someone, that's on us. We have to take that as a team, as a unit, but you're going to also be responsible, accountable, because you're going to know that every day there was some place for you to come, to eat, to chill, to whatever you needed. So if you switched up the journey, that's on you.
Yeah, for those of us who don't know, Tyreek has a physical space
Yes.
in his community. So that's what he's talking about. I'm going to have pictures in the video and everything. But thank you. I brought you on here because, like, in my opinion, I think that you're a hero and helping these kids when you do and being that sometimes it only takes one moment for a kid and you're giving them constant touches for over about 13 years now of consistency and showing up in care and in support and in leadership, and you're creating ripple effects within Philadelphia to the point where people are saying that it's literally impacted crime, right?
Yes.
Literally saving lives by saving people. And I'm so proud, that it is a Black man here helping us through in his community and staying, because you didn't have to stay. You could have got the heck out of Philly, after everything happened, and you could have just disappeared and did amazing in any area that you decided because of your inner strength. And you decided to stay, and you decided to give back, and you decided to do it for years, almost decades. Now we're getting into that realm.
Yeah,
Like
that's
that's pretty amazing. It's pretty amazing. And so when I saw your story and I read about you and I read about what you've been doing, I was so inspired, because this work isn't pretty. It's not easy. We all have our moments, and I just wanted to hopefully get up on here and give you your affirmation. This is Affirmations for Black Men, Tyrique. So my affirmation is that you're an absolute hero. Everything that you're doing, even from each day at a time, you're making an incredible difference. And we're all so proud of you. And we thank you so much for doing this and
Thank
being
you.
here for us.
I appreciate you for having me. If I want to close with, regardless of what you did yesterday, you can always provide a better tomorrow. So for me to what my community is, be the Nobel Peace Prize of your neighborhood, your block, your household, regardless of what happened yesterday. Go find some good work and change the lives of many.
And to the Black man listening, thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. Don't forget to subscribe. That's how we grow. That is how we build here. That is how we continue to do this work. And make sure that you comment your feedback. Please follow Tyrique and his organization. And if you can, do me a favor and also donate, because this is someone who's real, who's doing the work and is doing their best. And we just want to support you as much as
Thank
we
you.
can. So I'm hoping that you guys can send him some love. And also, before we go, I'm going to say and ends this with an affirmation as usual to you guys. Black man, thank you so much for joining us. It can get really crazy out in the world of social media, of people presenting as a certain thing and of the game of comparison. But the real worth, the real value, the real stuff, the real life is here in person, is on your block, in your house, in your family. That is where we're going to make real change and impact, and within yourself. I pray and I hope that you can heal within and understand that there's people who are out here who are wanting to meet you, who are wanting to love you, who are wanting to join you on that journey, and who are wanting to support you. And we love you. We support you. And thank you so much for coming on our podcast today. And that's a wrap. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Tyrique.